Hi everybody, my name is Jordan Russo and I'm one of the seamstresses for Beyond Fig Leaves Costume and Sewing. Now one of the things that I make for our Etsy shop is scarves. Some people use them for neck scarves and other people use them for headscarves. Now there are a lot of people that have come to me over the years saying, how do you keep your headscarf on? Because I have worn headscarves for close to 10 years, starting in about 2010 for religious reasons. Now some people need it, because they're a cancer patient or they just want something decorative on their head. And that's fine, but there is, it's kind of mind-boggling to try and figure out how do I keep this thing on my head. So as a Messianic dance leader, which is one of my hobbies, and this is actually my hobby dance channel, it teaches Messianic and Hebraic Israeli dance. I've been doing that since 2011. But since then, I've had to try and figure out how do I keep my headscarf on myself, because Messianic dance can get very wild and can get very fast at times. Not to discourage you from taking a look at the channel, because it goes from very simple to very advanced as well. But you got to keep your headscarf on, because that's part of the outfit and part of, the attire that most Messianic women wear. And there was one particular worship dance, presentation dance, where I actually had to take my headscarf off because I knew it was going to go. So I just took it off and threw it on stage. So over the years, I've had to really rack my brain, figure out how to keep it on my head, and this video will be teaching you all of the quick tips and tricks and things to look for when even buying a scarf as to whether or not it will probably stay on your head. But we're gonna go through all of that today and show you all of the things you need to know to make sure your headscarf won't go anywhere. The first thing you need to think about, and the primary thing you need to think about when making sure a headscarf stays on your head, is the word texture. Now texture, the more texture you have, the more likely the scarf is going to stay in place, whether or not it's your hair texture or the scarf texture. Now before I get into the type of scarves, I am going to talk about hair texture. Now my hair actually has quite a bit of texture on it already because it is naturally curly, so it's got a little bit more volume to it. And when I put stuff on it, typically it doesn't, when I put stuff on it, typically it won't, whatever I put on my head won't go anywhere. As opposed to, this type of hair. Now this is a wig, obviously, but this is really fine, really slick hair, which again comes back to texture. The smoother it is, the more likely it's not going to stay on your head. So, but then again, everybody kind of has to worry about, whether or not they can keep a scarf on their head. So if you have finer hair, you really need to pay attention to this video, because the finer your hair is, the slipperier your hair is, the more likely your scarf is going to come off. But if you have hair like mine, which is quite thick, it's more likely not to go anywhere, but you still need to pay attention because the scarf type is what we're going to get into next. So when you're buying a scarf that you really don't want to go anywhere on your head, look for natural or natural type fabrics, like cotton, like rayon that feels like a cotton, and linen. Those are the types of fabrics that, the more texture it has, the more likely it's not going to go anywhere. Especially if your hair does have a lot of texture and you match it with a textured fabric, then it's really probably not going to go anywhere. So the cotton, natural cottons, like a cotton knit, works really well too. And then there's rayon fabrics like this one. This is one of my latest creations for the Etsy shop. It's one of my favorites now. But this one, it feels like a cotton, but it is a rayon, so it doesn't necessarily come down to the type per se, but if you're buying it online, look for like 100% cotton, 100% linen, or knit, 100% knits in the natural realm as far as that goes. But if you can't find a natural fiber, go for a rayon that looks like a cotton texture, and ask the seller what type of fabric and what the type of fabric feels like. Does it feel natural? Does it feel synthetic? But the more natural it feels, the thicker it is, the more likely it's going to stay on your head. And to continue with texture, this one prayer shawl we have, Usually prayer shawls are just put on the head. They're not necessarily wrapped around the head, but I just wanted to show you this. This does have texture to it. This does have, you know, it's a lace, so it's gonna have, you know, all that extra raised pattern on one side, which won't, you know, which will prevent slipping, which is nice. Same thing with this type of scarf. Yeah, it's one-sided, and that's another thing. A lot of patterned scarves that have texture only have it on one side, and usually it's the right side of the fabric, which you want to see on your head, versus the other side. And this one shows it, you know, most drastically, because you've got this nice velvet on the outside, which has so much texture. Velvet is a great fabric if you want to keep your scarf on your head. But if you turn it over, it's, you know, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's quite slick versus, you know, very little will move against that, versus, you know, a very slick side. And this is the side that you're going to be putting on your head because you want to show off the velvet. You want to show off this part. But we'll get to even, you know, how to hold this type of fabric onto your head in a minute. Now, another type of fabric that actually holds pretty well is like a quilting cotton. You don't see this normally with many scarves, headscarves, but there are some patterns that I just simply couldn't resist when making scarves at one point. So again, it comes back to being 100% natural, you know, not gonna move anywhere. 100% cotton is usually the way to go. Another type that works quite well is a knit. So any knits that have a lot of stretch, a lot of give, you know, depending on the way you put up your hair, it will, you know, give a little bit more give as far as how tight you pull it. And obviously the tighter you pull on whatever, you know, style you're going to put your headscarf on your head, that alters it too. And a lot of it comes down to personal preference, because there are some ways that I know the headscarf isn't going to go anywhere, but it takes 15 minutes to, you know, get it to that point. Now, the two types that you really need to be careful about are polyester and chiffon, and any synthetic, really slippery fabrics. And those two I have here. And this one, and you can hear it, it's really slick, really quite slick, really smooth. It's a really nice feel for a fabric and for a scarf, but this is going to slip off your head. No matter how much texture you have in your hair or, you know, something like that, that might be a problem. But we can fix that with all the tools over here. We're going to get to that. So, but another type is that you got to be careful for is a chiffon. Now, chiffon is typically pretty see-through. You can see the wall behind me like that. That is usually a chiffon, especially if it feels pretty slick. That's what a chiffon is. This one, a lot of people use this type for headscarves, but we'll be fixing that. I'll be showing you how to, you know, make sure it stays on your head. All right, so the first one that we're going to talk about is crossing bobby pins. Now, bobby pins are usually the go-to for keeping headscarves on your head, but when you actually cross bobby pins, like right up at the temple, or, you know, up through there, usually that creates a pretty good hold on the headscarf. So once I'm gonna just demonstrate that pretty quick here. I'm gonna put my hair up. So here, I'm gonna use the knit fabric. This is another new scarf. So I'm just gonna do not down under to just show. So yeah, usually when I tie the scarf, I usually like to start it over my ear like that, and then push it back once the whole style is done. I'm just showing this, and, you know, just as is, just to show you the tools here. So for the bobby cross, this is the double bobby pin cross. We're gonna just put one right there, just up like you would normally. And that does create a fair amount of hold by itself, but, you know, if you want a little bit more strength, just put another one right across it, just like that. And that will really hold it in place. That is usually my really fast go-to if I don't have time to do, you know, more of the complicated stuff here. Now, the second type of tool that we have is these snap clips. So these are pretty popular as well. You just snap it right over the headscarf, and bam. Has the same effect as a bobby pin. It just looks, you know, a little quaint as far as that goes. but they do have a really good hold. So these would be good to pinch as well as bobby pins. And then the third type that we have here, I just went to Walmart yesterday to buy the snap clips, and I found these really, really pretty, almost like bobby pins, but they're a lot more heavy duty. So I don't know how well you can see it, but they're actually quite cool. I'm just gonna slide it right like that. So it's a little bit more decorative than a typical bobby pin. So if you're looking for something a little more decorative, and I can already feel this thing is really tight, so that one won't go anywhere. That'll be a good option too. Now the main trick I taught myself how to do with keeping a headscarf on my head is this next technique, is to use a hairband. Now this one, there's a couple different variations. I'll show you the fastest one first. And this one you can only do if you have like a reversible fabric or a chiffon where the pattern really looks the same on both sides. So if you have the headscarf on your head, like so. Okay. Now with this type, when you put the hairband on, make sure you have plenty of fabric even coming down over your forehead a little bit, and then take a matching headband, elastic headband, and a tiny one too, because you don't want it necessarily seen. So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna pop it right where you want the end of the headscarf edge to be, and then you flip it back. Now again, this is why you need a reversible scarf, because when you flip that edge over, it won't matter, because then you'll be seeing the right side of the fabric. So when you flip it over, you've got it nice and flat. Usually it actually puckers there a little bit, so you would just give it a pull down by where it's folded, and then that usually holds it quite well. That's the technique I've used for years. It's very fast, very quick, and then and that would be before, this step would be before, like if you were to do like a turban look up over the top of your head, like that. So that's a very quick way to do it. But again, use that technique for a reversible fabric. So you can just get, any of these pins, hairbands at most, grocery stores or hair supply places. Now the one that's a little more complicated that you usually use with a one-sided fabric, like with this one where it's got the pattern on one side and then the blank on the other. This is the type where you'd use this next technique for. So this one, you would take, again, a headband. Now as far as headbands go, there's a couple different types. You've got kind of the elastic type, and again, there's this type as well. But this one I love. This one's my favorite. This one has like actual little rubber grippies on it. So this one, again, it comes down to texture. The more texture you have, especially rubber, that can, will really create a really good grip. This is probably, if not my favorite headband in the house, it's definitely in the top 3. So for this next technique, I'm going to start by putting the headband on my head, right like that, and then this gets a little weird. So depending on how you're going to tie your scarf, you either find the center of the scarf or the part where the pattern calls for it, because sometimes you call for 2/3 or way off to the other side, but in this case I'm just going to go half. So what you do is you take the right side of the fabric and place that over your face, and then you're going to tuck it right up underneath your headband. So we're just going to tuck it in. Now this can get fussy, but you just tuck it in. Not a huge amount, but just enough to, grab enough fabric. Hang on, I'll talk when I get back out. Just enough to, make sure that, the headband has something to grab onto. So I'm just going to tuck it in like that, and then give it a pull like you saw me just do, just to make sure it's completely flat so it looks like that's the scarf it's supposed to do. So, and flip it back, and then adjust where you want it to be. Now, and since this is before the actual styling of the scarf, I would recommend placing the headband just a little bit more forward than you normally would, because with time it will eventually move back. And when you're tying the scarf too, make sure you don't tie it too tight, especially if you're wrapping quite a lot back here. That can pull the headbands off, and you don't want that. But that is a great technique too for keeping your headscarf in place. Now, another technique to keep in mind is when you're using headscarves that are slick or slippery or things like that, don't be afraid to use another type of scarf underneath that has texture. Because again, even slipperier ones aren't going to move as much if you have more texture underneath. So if you have like a cotton headband, or, you know, like all natural headband like this, or like a handkerchief that you would tie kind of like in a matchmaker Fiddler on the Roof style, and just tuck it in so you've got like a cap of cotton for the slippery or, you know, other fabric scarf to hang on to. It's kind of creating a base for, you know, to be built on, because fabric will more easily hold on to other fabric versus your hair. That's another thing to keep in mind too. So if you're going to be like layering, you know, a particular pattern, especially with several scarves, you can do that too. I'll make more videos that show you how to do that. But use like a textured cotton as like a base scarf, and then a more slippery one that of course matches, and layer that all the way up, you know, to make a layered look, like a turban or whatnot. Or even if you're just doing a simple one, like for a video I've already made before, just a simple way to tie your headscarf, but just put like something cotton underneath, whether or not it's a headband or, you know, a handkerchief, you know, just tied over your hair. And the last tool that we're going to talk about is velvet caps. Now, velvet caps, these we have available in our Etsy store. We have them available in blue, brown, and ivory. Now, this is the textured of all textured fabrics you're going to find. Now, we're selling these specifically as headscarf bases. So for, you know, the more silky fabrics, or for anything that needs just a little bit extra grip, and you know, need something underneath that's fast and quick, that's what these caps are for. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. So I'm just going to put my hair up, and this is pretty much meant to have all of your hair tucked up and in. So I'm going to stick it in. Ooh. Now I'm going to do brown instead. I like brown better. Okay, so I'm going to pop that over my head. Okay. All right, took out all the hair. And yes, it looks funny this way, but you know, the weight of the hair that you have on your head is gonna kind of make it settle back a little bit more. And yeah, there you go. So I'm just gonna tie a scarf around it now. So here we go. And you can hear it too. That's pretty cool, actually. If you take a scarf and you just drag it, you can hear all that texture holding it in place, or at least trying to as I pull the scarf. So I'm just going to tie the scarf. Hang on. There is actually a miracle in biblical times that a lot of people don't know about. A lot of filmmakers do, but not a lot of regular people know how to do it. If you watch many biblical movies and things like that, you will see it, you know, on every single woman who has a headscarf. You know how, you know, they have it hanging down like this with no help whatsoever, and it doesn't matter what they're doing or where they're running or anything. That headscarf isn't going anywhere. That is an undocumented miracle. So, but every filmmaker somehow, you know, manages to keep every woman's headscarf in place. So this is that video for how to reduplicate that miracle. So I'm just going to tie the scarf like this. This is one of my favorite ways. Like that. Yeah, and if you buy a headscarf that's actually wide enough, you can see it's actually covering the whole cap as is. And even if you don't, depending on how you style the scarf, you can cover up those caps pretty easily. but make sure to buy, a cap that will probably match what you're gonna wear most of the time, or match your hair color. So if you have a lighter hair color, go with an ivory. My hair color is kind of medium, so I go with a dark, and just something that'll go well against whatever scarf you're doing, and keep the type of scarf in mind too. Because if you have a more see-through scarf like this one, you don't want to see like a bright blue underneath a pink chiffon scarf or something like that. But to that end, as far as velvet caps go, if you want a color that we don't have available, please let us know. But that is all the tips I have for now. I will create another video if I happen to, run across a couple new tips. But if you have any questions or comments or another idea I didn't put into this video, put it in the comments section below. We look forward to hearing from you. And if you have any questions about how do you do that again, or can you expound on that a little bit more, you can contact us. Our email is in the description below. But if you want to buy any of these items, as far as like the velvet caps or the scarves go, our link to our Etsy shop is in the description below. So until next time, thank you for watching and have a great day.